No, I don't have my headphones with me.
No worries. No worries. I can mute in the interim. Do you have
Cool.
what was I gonna say? Products on Live and Blab open on the same channel? Like the Products on Live page and the Blab open? Like, is this just the only tab?
I don't. Should I have the Blab is the only tab I have open that's making noise.
Okay, perfect. No, that's fine. Brittany, do you have any recommendations? Maybe I'll refresh because there's a bit of a lag.
Let me just see if I can get headphones real quick. Hold on.
Okay. I'll refresh too.
Does anybody out here have a pair of headphones I could borrow?
I used to.
Yeah, that's fine. Perfect. Okay, I think we're gonna get headphones. We're gonna get headphones. Sorry, everybody.
Perfect. Guys, you guys are seeing the backstage. Josh, where are you from right now? Are you in the office?
I'm in my office.
Give a little backstory where you are right now. We're ready to start. You are in the Greylock office in San Francisco.
No, I'm at the Greylock office on Sand Hill Road.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Cool. Hold on one second. Here we go. Oh, thank you so much. Okay, hold on. Let's put these in.
Let's see. Do you hear it echo?
Wait, no, I can't hear it.
Oh, that's so much better. Can you hear me? Josh.
Wait, now I can't hear anything.
I hope you hear me because I'm talking shit about you. Talking so much shit.
I can't hear shit.
Oh my God, Josh, you're the worst. No. Yeah, Josh.
Okay, how's that?
So much better. Can you hear me?
I still can't hear now.
Ooh. What should he do? Should he restart?
Eric, I can't hear you now. Are you muted?
Can you hear me? No, I'm talking.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Do people hear me?
What is going on?
Britt, what do you recommend? Should Josh restart? Oh, yeah, one sec.
Can Josh hear me? Or let's see, probably not. Let's see, maybe if he I guess that makes sense.
One sec.
Oh, maybe a minute. Hey guys. Let's see if we can get Josh's headphones set up. Yes, exactly what Frankie's saying. Sometimes, like when you plug in headphones, it doesn't register. You have to like change it on your Mac because it forgets how to computer sometimes.
Yo, Josh, can you unplug for a second, just so you can hear Brittany?
Is he even on the phone? How is this happening?
Yeah, but people can't hear you. Yeah, just reboot and we'll go from there. Don't worry about it. Cool. So we're rebooting. Hold on one sec.
Okay, so welcome to Product Hunt Live Chat. I'm
In
Brittany.
the meantime, Britt, while you're here, I might as well interview you for a couple minutes. That's cool.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So,
So
Britt,
what's it like being a
what's
VC?
Britt, can you hear me, Britt?
Yeah.
It's my turn to talk. What is the best lesson that you ever learned from your dad?
Probably to have a good sense of humor about everything. I am my dad. Like, in not a literal sense.
What'd you learn from your mom?
I hope she's not listening right now because I'm thinking too hard. Oh, common sense. There you go.
Common sense.
Common sense and humor mixed together. Thanks, Mom and Dad.
Do you ever feel that humor is like a mask for vulnerability? Like that's how I feel in my own life sometimes.
Like a life crutch?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. But I don't see why that's bad. So
yeah.
Some people, because if you can't like laugh at yourself, then everyone else will just laugh at you, right?
Yeah.
My Snapchats are kind of hilarious. Well, awesome. I'm just learning how to Snapchat because I guess I should. It's Bish Tank, like fish tank with a B. Because I forgot the passwords to all my other accounts.
Yo, Lucy, what's up?
Do I drink fake coffee from big mugs?
Yo, Lucy, you trying to ask a question? What are you trying to do?
I drink real coffee from big mugs.
Yeah.
Whole blog about it. Oh my! I sometimes there's water in my mug. Shh.
Yo, Lucy, can you hop in this Blab chat real quick? Or Lucy works at Snapchat.
Oh, what? Oh, thank God I like it now. Because I was going to throw some mad shade. I'm just kidding.
Yo, Brittany, what do you want to be when you grow up?
I hit what I wanted to be. When I was at Bevo, I was our artist. And I like wanted to be an artist when I grew up. So I guess now I'm just going to have fun. I like already think I grew up and like hit my goal and I was like, cool, touched it. Now I'll just do whatever I want.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah. Worked out.
Cool.
Maybe the weirdest answer. Let's see, Josh. Josh, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Oh my God, what a miracle. All right.
It took a reboot on this stupid computer. I apologize.
I answered all questions about you already. So like
good.
All right. See ya.
Thank you, Brittany. Now that we've known she's achieved all her life goals, we will get into Josh and myself. Okay, Josh, thank you for coming on Product Hunt Live. It is an honor to have you here.
Cool. Thank you for having me, and sorry for the technical difficulties on my computer.
No. There's a lot we want to get into, career-wise, product-wise, investor-wise. Awesome. There's so much to talk to, but let's start at the beginning. When you were in high school and college, what did you think you were going to do? What did you think you were going to become?
When I was in high school, the thing I was most excited about was urban studies, and really thinking about the future of cities and how you could build out cities. And I was going to go to college and study economics and maybe some East Asian studies, thinking that China was going to be a big place of the future. And I thought between the two of them, I'll be able to kind of figure out how we build the future of our cities. And I started to realize, though, that being in economics and in cities, things move pretty slow. And you could work on a development that might be a 10-year project, or you could work on city regulations and be a city manager. And my brother was majoring in CS at Stanford, and sort of my dad was always into computers. And between the two of them, sort of got convinced that, like, if I really wanted to move fast and really help change stuff, it was going to be much more about getting into technology and the future of that. And that was really happening. And Netscape 0.6 was what I used as a freshman in college. So I kind of switched. I actually switched from Yale to Stanford. I was a freshman at Yale. I was my parents met at Stanford. My brother was at Stanford. I was like, maybe I made a mistake, didn't follow the family. So I switched over to Stanford, jumped into computers full on, ended up majoring in symbolic systems, and kind of decided that was where I was going to put my time and energy on really making stuff fast. And this was also the heyday of, like, Netscape was coming out, and eBay and Amazon and Yahoo. Those were the big companies back when I was in school.
Career out of being, a superb, superlative product manager. When is the moment that you knew, because you started as an engineer, right? When's the moment that you knew you wanted to be?
I don't think there's ever a moment that I said I really want to be a product manager. I think the whole time, though, I want to do one thing, which is work on stuff that, if you get it right, can touch hundreds of millions, billions of people, and really build technology that people bring into their daily lives. And that was actually what I said in my college resume as my objective when I was looking for my first job in college. I think the one thing I've figured out is, as you build technical skills and as you build products and as you put them in people's hands, the more you do that, there are roles where you can keep creating code and sort of have an impact on one feature in one area, or you can have roles where you can help figure out what kind of code 10 people are going to write, or 20 people are going to write, or 50 people are going to write in order to build that product that delivers it. And so I think my whole career has just been, how can I help get the most products built and the most things written? And as I learn to code and as I ship successful products, could I be more successful helping more people doing that than just taking on a bunch of coding projects myself? So that was really my shift, more from engineering to product management, versus me just waking up one day and go, I want to be a product manager.
You said you wrote this on your objective for college resume?
Or my resume when I was leaving college and, like, applying to jobs, it said, to create great technology that changes people's lives.
And what inspired, is there like a philosophical underpinning or religious underpinning that inspired that, or just sort of what inspires that, like, system of that desire?
I wish I could trace it back to, like, something in my childhood or something with my parents, but I just think, I just always had this dream to kind of, like, it's really interesting to work at scale. I was an intern at Microsoft in 1995, which was like the heyday of Microsoft. It was the summer of the Windows 95 launch. And I got to see what happened when you created a company that, their goal was to put a computer on every desktop in every home. And I got to see what happened when you did that, and what a company like that became and the impact it could have on the world. And I think that sort of set me in my whole career. I want to have that kind of impact. And yet I always got attracted to the ones that could have that impact from something really small, versus just jumping into a job that sort of already was at scale.
Early employee at, some of the biggest companies of our generation, at the biggest companies of our generation.
Yeah.
How did you find yourself at, like, the right place at the right time? What was the first moment that you were transitioned from working at a company to working at the?
Yeah, well, look, when I graduated from school, my specific goal was to find a company that had not gone public yet. This was 1997, that I thought had a chance to be huge for the world. And I also kind of wanted to go back up to Seattle. So Amazon had already gone public up in Seattle, but Real Networks, which was doing audio and video, and this, like, brilliant idea, let's put audio video on the internet, just like we're doing here. Like, this was the idea back in 1997. I thought that would be a great company to go work at. Real got pretty big for a short period of time. And I came down to after 6 years, I kind of saw the writing on the wall that it might not be the dominant long-term company in audio and video. Came down to the Valley and actually started business school, and said, I'm going to go to business school because I need to go learn business things in Excel. And at business school, my buddy and I got excited about social networking. And we said, this feels like this could be a really big thing. So first it was audio video for me, then it was social networking. I cold emailed jobs@friendster.com, jobs@linkedin.com. I managed to get a response from jobs@linkedin.com because I had done the same major at Stanford as Reid Hoffman, who's the founder of LinkedIn. And they said, hey, come chat. And then it was like, why are you in business school? Come here and be a product manager. And put all that together and ended up joining. But I had that thesis that I thought social networking could be big. Joining Facebook and Twitter a little bit later in my career might have been more obvious. By the time I joined Facebook, it was early 2008. The Facebook platform had launched. It was a pretty big deal, but people still didn't predict it would become as big as it has. And I thought this could be the future of the consumer internet, how every product is built on Facebook platform. And then with Twitter, I looked at Facebook and I said, gosh, Facebook's going to go on to be a great company, but I got sort of itchy to go back to something even earlier than when I joined Facebook, and thought Twitter, man, has a chance to be a really big thing, and ended up joining them. And it was always like, whenever I joined, I was like, if this works, it has a chance to be really, really big and important company. And that's kind of always what I set out to go look for.
Reid, like in 2004, 2003, when you first met him, and now you're working with him, 13 years later, what was that like?
What's funny is, getting to know somebody. I think Reid is kind of a pretty big public figure at this point. I mean, he's a founder of LinkedIn, a multi-billionaire, and yet he's not that different of a person than he was back then. He's always been incredibly strategic. Like when I first met him at LinkedIn, and he told me, here's exactly how LinkedIn's going to evolve. First, we get this network, and we grow the network to a point where everybody has to be in it, because if you're working professionally, the people that you know are one of the biggest assets that you have. And so we're going to figure out how to virally grow this network. And then we're going to add usage. We're going to build utilities that people can do this to be a better employee or more productive in their own careers, or learn to manage their own careers. And then we're going to build revenue products that figure out how to leverage the network in a really meaningful way. And he just like laid out the entire 10-year, 20-year arc of LinkedIn. And like, I kind of call him Babe Ruth sometimes. He kind of called his shot and then actually hit it. And yet, like, when you talk to him now about LinkedIn, about any of the strategy of the internet, like, he's just as intellectual and thoughtful, and mind is always worrying on how things could be better, whether it's a minute little product detail, as he ever has been. And yet when you kind of realize those dreams, you start to wonder, what is the bigger impact you can have on the world? And I see him pondering that, and kind of how does he get sort of next level leverage too. So
let's just say, the Reid of 2003, I mean, before that, a professional network didn't exist in the same way, right? Like, he really made something new. If he was, before LinkedIn in 2016, what opportunity do you think he would pursue, like, now?
That's a great question. I think, and he's always looking at it from the investment standpoint, because I think the benefit of, being at Greylock is we all get to go, and instead of starting or founding the companies that, or in my case, joining the companies I believe could be a big deal, we get to sort of sign up as an investor and a board member for those. I see him excited about the future of Bitcoin, the future of all of us are talking about, what is the future of, like, humanity and biology and synthetic biology, and all the things that are happening there as those start to become more readily available. They are the future of communication platforms. What is next? We've invested in companies that disrupt major industries through mobile products, similar ways to how Uber has done it for personal transport. We're just looking at all these things that could be as disruptive in today's era as social networking was 10, 12 years ago.
Why can't people mess with LinkedIn? Like, or a lot of people say, don't even try to compete with LinkedIn. You can't. What is network effect just too powerful? Like,
the network effect on LinkedIn is incredibly powerful, and it's not really about engagement. I would say the core premise of LinkedIn is to find or be found. And so for most people in the world, the premise is to be found for the right opportunity, the right job, the right thing you didn't know was coming your way. And LinkedIn has 300 plus million people in the world who want to be found for the right opportunity. And then it has a smaller number of people who are actively doing the finding, whether they're startup founders trying to network to the right people, whether they're hiring managers trying to hire, whether they're business development or sales professionals trying to find the right contact at a company. But because all those people are doing the finding and everybody else wants to be found, it works really well. And it's very hard to go build a new massive network that will have everybody in it in anywhere near the same way, that will have everybody wanting to be found. Because if I tell you, Eric, go sign up for 5 new services and have your professional history online and connect with the people you've worked with, They're like, why? I already have LinkedIn.
One by one, what was Mark or like some of the exec team like, even the company like,
Yeah.
2008 or when you joined, relative,
You know what's funny is back in 2008, the company was still, things were going incredibly well. The product was growing worldwide. The platform had launched, and we'd had, developers get to hundreds of, or tens of millions of users in their products really fast. And yet the company was in this interesting point of uncertainty. Like, it knew there was a big deal, and it knew there was a big long-term thing that Facebook was going to become, but people didn't know how it was going to make money. They didn't feel confident that there was going to be a lot of revenue that was about to happen. Look, I even think as mobile happened, a lot of people were like, "Oh, this mobile thing, it's important, but not that big a deal." And there was a real then tension over the next couple of years that Facebook was going to miss mobile. And I think the team sort of was still finding itself in that 2008 and 9 era. We launched Facebook Connect. The platform went through a bunch of shifts, and people saw all of a sudden Facebook's killing the platform. The iPhone started to become an even better source of distribution than Facebook, as their app store launched. And I think there was a set of uncertainty. And what Mark was incredible at doing was making everybody at Facebook feel like they were part of a journey and a mission and sort of a war almost on how to become the biggest, most important company in the world. I remember very specifically a time when sort of the company shifted from like, hey, we got to go beat MySpace to be the most important social platform to, hey, we got to go beat Google to be the most important technology company. And we were not bigger than MySpace when the company made that shift, but we felt like it was inevitable that we would be. We were already going to go set our sights on Google. And
wow.
I think that sort of energy and focus and drive to be the best, really has just been a guiding force, within that company. Nothing is too ambitious to go and try to tackle, even though, there's a couple, false starts here and there. Move fast and break things was not a concept, it was a mission.
And what about Twitter? I mean, to be there at the time that you were at and to know, to work with Ev and Biz and Jack, talk a little bit about that side.
Yeah, it's funny. Jack wasn't involved in the company when I joined. I actually never really met him much until kind of the very end when he started to come back full time. When I joined Twitter, I'd come out of Facebook that sort of had this energy, this we can build anything, we can conquer the world. And when I was looking at Twitter, I found myself using Twitter more. I was like, whoa, Facebook's incredible to keep up with your friends, but Twitter, you can be in touch with the whole world. You can see what's going on everywhere. You can feel it, embrace it, be a part of like this fabric of the world that is completely different. And it wasn't tractable or tangible on Twitter, on Facebook. And so I got to Twitter, and I thought the Twitter was much bigger, and the whole world had heard of Twitter by then. It had been on Oprah, and people were talking about Twitter in the press all the time. And I got there, and I realized it was a very different company than Facebook. We didn't know how many users we had, and it wasn't that many relative to Facebook. The engineering had been under such duress because the fail well and just things of like, we can't even get to scale, and we didn't have a ton of infrastructure at that time, that it was like, how do we fix the infrastructure and stabilize the infrastructure versus we can go build anything and dominate anything. And yet what was amazing from folks like Ev and Biz and Jason Goldman, who was running product at the time, was this idea that if we get Twitter right, it truly is an important voice channel, voice communication for the whole world. And the things that are happening and the things that people are saying on Twitter and this open communication, this open information network is like nothing that we've ever had before. And they're like, we have a mission to actually go take care of that opportunity for the world, and we have to go do it.
And when you joined Greylock, talk about that transition a little bit. Did you know that you wanted to become an investor?
Yeah.
How,
It was actually not nearly as intended. I think by the time I was at Facebook and I'd been through Reel and LinkedIn and Zazzle and Facebook, I had that dream. I'm like, ooh, wouldn't it be cool to be a VC someday? They get to go and sit and make the decisions on which companies to back and not, and I think I always had sort of aspirational. I wish I'd understood what VC was like before thinking it was cool, because it's much harder than I suspected before joining. But I had that sort of aspiration and thought, wouldn't that be fun? but when I joined Twitter, I was like, this is my company. I've already been through enough. LinkedIn and Zazzle and Facebook. I've been a couple of years at each of them. I was like, at Twitter, I'm going to ride this thing all the way. I really want to be part of taking a company public. I really just want to become one of the lead product leaders who's just, joins the company early and stays forever. I really respected some of the people who'd been even earlier at me at Facebook, who had risen to great roles of leadership, guys like Chris Cox, who's just exceptional. I'd really respected people I'd seen at Google who'd still been around Google 10 years later, driving new initiatives. And I was like, I hope Twitter's that company for me when I joined. And then it got to be a little bit of a bummer. I think, there's a book about what happened at Twitter kind of at the CEO level, but Ev was asked to leave. Jason Goldman, Biz Stone ended up leaving, and not being as active sort of, in the 6 or 9 months after that. DeCostello took over, and then Jack Dorsey came back. And, through all that, I was like, I believe in Twitter. I want to make Twitter something great. I believe this should be everybody's way that they connect with the whole world. I had a bunch of dreams and ideas for the next set of roadmap stuff that I was really excited to help the teams build in the areas that I was working on around growth and relevance. So all of that was me, believing in Twitter. But when Jack Dorsey came back, we didn't click, and it became clear that he wanted his own people in kind of senior product roles, and I wasn't one of them on the train. Got kicked, asked to leave the company, asked to resign, I guess, technically, a few months later. And that was July of 2011. And I said, man, what am I going to do? I've been through some of the most amazing companies. Now I no longer have a job at any of them. And yet I wonder if there's the lessons I've learned would help to do something different. And I was just about to be 36 years old. And I thought, man, if I'm ever going to try to be a VC, this might be the time to see if that's a career path for me, or if I should go find another company to go be a part of. And, I'd been fortunate to know both Reid and David Z, who runs Greylock, as well as a bunch of the other partners here over the years, just through interactions. And, I've been working at Facebook, which was a portfolio company of theirs, and we'd help with like a bunch of platform partnerships. So they said, hey, why don't you come and, what do you want to do? And I was like, I'd love to try to learn about VC, see if it's something for me or not. They said, come here and hang out for a couple of years and we'll figure out if it's a fit. And, the idea was, 2-3 years of spending time at Greylock, helping to find interesting companies. And the default plan was I would go back to get a product job after that. And that was really what I anticipated doing. But a couple years in
Snapchat.
Snapchat was one of the ones that I sourced and was encouraging us to invest in. We unfortunately are not invested in Snapchat, but I think I went through the list of companies I'd found and the ways that I was operating in the VC community and thought to myself, I wonder if this would actually be something that I could actually be, do as a career. I mean, VC is a job, just like product management's a job, just like, running a company is a job. And I thought maybe I should stick and try to do this. And the Greylock folks, David and Reid and James and John, were like, hey, we like your style and what you do, and we think you'd be able to invest in some good companies. If we actually give you the chance to do that, and putting it all together, it just felt like this was something that I want to do. And there's a great quote from the musical Hamilton, if you haven't seen it, about I'm not going to throw away my shot. And this was sort of like me, like, you know what, I have a shot now to get to work with the best founders and help them build their companies and invest on behalf of Greylock and our limited partners. And thought, I'm not going to throw away that shot.
You had one shot, one opportunity.
I got my shot.
So tell me, when you found Snapchat, you sourced Snapchat, you built a relationship with Evan, you knew that this was going to be big, and the partnerships didn't buy it. What's going through your head at this point? Are you furious? Are you?
Look, there's a lot of complicated story for how we didn't end up getting to invest in Snapchat. Evan is an incredible founder, and I think will be one of the iconic founders of our time. There's a lot of different press or reputation about him, but I think that's all missing the real story of the person he is and the company he's building. You can't invest in everything, and I think the challenge of venture capital is not to invest in every single company you think has a chance, but to find those couple that become your tribe and your portfolio and the ones you really get to bet on. As a non-partner, all I could do in that role was helping me, try to encourage them to see the light. And as we got closer to possible decisions, it was, how can we as a partnership really make this happen? And it doesn't always work out. And it doesn't always work out for founders who want to raise money from certain people, and doesn't always work out for investors who want to invest in certain companies. And you just got to keep on going. Find the next one, next play.
I worked with Reid, Mark at Facebook, Ev Williams, and gotten to know Evan a bit. These are some of the most iconic founders of this generation. Talk about the differences when you think about the archetype of an iconic founder. Like, what are the differences between those four? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's a great question. What all the great founders have that I've gotten to work with have in common is a recognition of the luck they've had that's gotten them in a position to build something that's world changing. So look, everybody starts in the same place. I want to build this cool thing. I want to build, Reid was like, I want to build a professional network that we connect professionally. And, Ev Williams was like, hey, look, this Twitter thing, I built Blogger and, Odeo didn't work. And hey, this Twitter thing that, Jack and Biz started actually seems to be working. Or, you have, obviously Marcus started Facebook on college and like, whoa, it's taking off. But what happened kind of partway down the journey of all of these things is they realized now that this thing's working, it can be a really important company for the world. Now that Twitter was starting to have this sort of microblogging traction, I think Ev Williams and the team there realized, whoa, this could actually be a really important news network for the world. I think the Facebook folks, there's stories of the Facebook folks wanting to deviate and work on something called Wirehog that was like a better Napster. Weren't even sure if Facebook was actually going to be the big thing they ended up doing, but you saw that at some point pretty early, Mark clicked and realized connecting the world might be the single most important idea, and that this might actually become, the future product. And so, it takes that luck to get going, but each one of those folks, once they saw it, they then were able to really articulate that vision and drive the company all the way there and make really thoughtful decisions every step of the way on whether they thought they could help the company get there.
A year ago on the board, Ben Rubin is a great friend of the company, he's one of the best guys. How do you make sense of that investment?
It's a great question, and thanks. I see Zach for asking something about that in the chat channel. I started work at Real Networks, believed in live video back in 1997 when I started working there. I was an advisor to Ustream in 2008, 9, and 10. I was helping them quite a bit, believing in live video, still from webcams. Look, we're here on Blab, like having this great live video experience. When I met Ben Rubin as a founder of Meerkat, he was working on a different product called Yavo. I thought, man, there's a guy who's just has this massive vision for what live video can behold. And when Meerkat took off, I thought he might have just combined that intuition and persistence and belief in live with luck, with that, like, this might be the moment that mobile live video happens. And I believed that mobile live video was about to be a thing that brought us together in incredible new ways, where I'm out at a party, out in a moment, out at a concert, out just taking a walk. I can bring my friends with me in the moment, sharing it in a way that nothing's done that before. And I thought that was going to be an incredible moment and opportunity to do that. And I thought Ben and the team were really well positioned to do that. I think over the year, two things have proven out. One is mobile live video is hard. Most people don't want to do it. Creating interesting content in the moment to bring your friends together. You guys don't all have the same free time at the same moment that often. That's why we text each other and hardly ever call. It's why Blab is great for the people who are watching it live. Thank you all for doing that. But I think a lot more people might even watch it later. And so I think we learned that mobile live video just is much harder, and people weren't quite as ready for it as I'd hoped. And then, it is hard to compete with Facebook and Twitter when they were both doing it. I felt pretty good being a number, 2 to Periscope, and thought if this plays out over a long time, Meerkat will be really strong. Once Facebook launched their stuff and celebrities started shifting over to that too, it became even harder for Meerkat to sort of be a number 3 behind Facebook and Twitter, which had such great audience. And so Ben really did something smart. He looked at the world and said, I'm not sure I'm ever going to be the dominant company here. Here's a couple of ideas that we think we've learned the really important things from Meerkat. How do we bring friends together, for example? And how do we think we can go make a product that makes that experience so profound and so different, and build a very important network for that. And that's sort of what they're trying to do. And as a
Yeah.
board member, we're still going after the same vision of making live video part of the world. And as a I didn't bet on Meerkat will work, and if not, this money is a waste. I bet on Ben and this company to keep on learning in live video and build something profound. And I'm hopeful that they will. Most startups don't succeed, so we went into the opportunity knowing that this was a high beta risk, and it definitely hasn't gotten me to a place where I'm more confident it's going to work yet, but I'm still very optimistic. And I love working with Ben and the team. I spend time in the Slack on product feedback and hanging out with them, whenever I can.
One of the reasons you're one of the most beloved VCs in tech is because you are a advisor and mentor to so many. And in one of the situations in which you advise and mentor is when people should either start their own thing or leave something to join something else, sort of big career decisions. And you are a fascinating person to talk to about it because you have been at 3 of the biggest companies, most successful tech companies, and you've left after a couple years at each one, give or take. What looking back, how do you make sense of one, your philosophy on when to leave something and join something else or start something, and or your just general looking back at your own path, how do you make sense of, because you could say, oh, you could have stayed at this one, but then you wouldn't have been at Twitter, or wouldn't have been at Facebook. Like, you joined iconic companies. So how do you?
Well, look, I think the first thing I always say is do as I say, not as I did, because I moved a little too much, and to have been as lucky as I was to move around as much as I did and still end up at really iconic, really successful companies is a super high degree of difficulty maneuver. And I bet you if I were trying to build my career starting from scratch, even with the same tools or knowledge that I have now, I doubt that I could even repeat that. So look, I think the dream is try to find that one great company you believe in, you believe can get big, you believe where your job gets better and different and grows more every year, and you really believe you're still on a mission to something great. And if you find that, enjoy it, stick, grow in the company, have a great time. Don't necessarily sit there and go, oh, I should leave to go on to the next company like I did. Don't always say, I want to be more senior. Why am I not the VP yet? That was one of my mistakes in my career, was that I would think to myself, why am I not running the show? And I'd spend more time kind of getting caught up on that than thinking about how do I do such great work that a year from now or 2 years from now, they're asking me to take on a lot more responsibility. So patience, there's this urgency in our careers. I should be a founder tomorrow. I should be a CEO tomorrow, that I think, I wish I had a lot more patience in my career. I never should have left LinkedIn, for example, although I realized I didn't love the HR space. So that's sort of the first thing I tell people is, when they're thinking about their job and whether they should go somewhere else or not, is always go to something new that you think is a bigger, better chance for you to be involved with something important. Don't just leave your current job because you're dissatisfied. Because you have to look at your current job and say, if I just stay here, as long as they don't fire me, which we can come back to that, as long as they don't fire me, if I keep staying here and doing and growing with this company, is my job going to get more interesting, more fun, more exciting? And if you believe that, then, and I'm going to be part of something that's a very big impact on the world, I highly encourage people to stay. I think it's really, really important.
Well, let's come back to that, because that's a fear of many people.
Yep.
Is getting let go. How have you sort of navigated that in your own career, and what do you advise to people who come to you?
So there's two ways people get fired. One is they get fired or asked to leave specifically for their own performance or their own fit at the company. The second is when they get laid off as part of the company has to restructure and do this. Both of those suck. They're very different. In the first one, if you get fired in the first case and you didn't see it coming, you need to really self-reflect on what you were doing wrong or what you weren't doing at the company, so you can go back and figure that out. Because if you can't understand why that happened, that's a problem, and it should never be a surprise. And you should know, I'm not doing my best work. What are the situation I need to do my best work to feel great at my job? Because at the end of the day, we should all be able to stay there. In the second case, there's sometimes not much you can do about it except for you to detect the company may or may not be succeeding, and then again find one that's more interesting. But that's sort of on the negative side. On the positive side, the way I always thought about it is I always had a list of the companies that I would love to be a part of that I thought could be really big and important for the world if I wasn't at my current one. And so, I always had my own list, and everybody should have a list, and it should be ranked. And you'd be like, look, if you weren't working at your current job, what is the one you should go work at? Like, what is the one you think you'd have more fun and by the way, that I think you think can be 10x bigger. Like, I like to think about like the company can be 10x bigger from where it is today, whether that's in revenue or users or usage, but there's something that there's a 10x shift, because if you can get a job at a company that's going to have a 10x or more shift, your job is going to get bigger and more interesting immediately. So that's sort of, have that list, keep that list, work the relationship so you know some people at the company. So in the worst case where you do get fired, you can say, hey, I wasn't doing my best work. This wasn't the fit. This is the type of job that would be awesome for me, and I would love to come join you in that role if you think that's possible. Let me add one more really important thing is, no matter where you are, even if you risk getting fired or you want to leave yourself, always do great work and make sure you'll have great references from at least some people in the company. Like, if you really are in a situation where you think nobody likes you, nobody likes your work, you're not going to have any good references if you leave, like, leave immediately, because it's really hard to go get future jobs in the Valley without people who are your backers and advocates. I mean, Reid Hoffman, I left LinkedIn way too early, but because I'd done work that I was proud of and that he was happy with in the early days of LinkedIn, he still referenced me well across my career and brought me back into Greylock. So that's just one example.
I mean, you didn't start a company in the traditional sense.
Yeah.
Does any part of, do you think we overvalue starting companies? Like, what do you think about that?
It's a great question. Look, my whole career, I was a joiner. I was an early joiner and joined things I thought could be a lot bigger with some founder who'd taken the risk and built the company. And I love being a joiner, and I'm pretty proud of the career I've made as a joiner. And I think as a VC, it's kind of like peak joining. Like, I get to join at the board level and I pay a lot of money to go get those jobs. Now. Look, I think founding is powerful. I think if somebody has a dream, somebody has an idea, somebody wants to start from something very small and they think this company, this idea should be a really, really big deal, you should totally go found a company. But it's a life decision. It's not I can be a founder or I could be a product manager. Like, these are not either or. This is like apples and oranges. If you have to found a company because if nobody else founds this idea, then it won't happen, or it might happen by somebody else, but it's really important and your idea is the way to do it, you should totally found a company. But if you're founding because it sounds fun, you're not that likely to be successful. None of the founders I've worked with ever just founded a company because they wanted to be a founder. They found a company because they thought that it was just their life mission and the sacrifice they were going to make and the idea that they wanted to get out of their heads. They just had to get a team of people to come with them and make it. And if they weren't doing that, they just don't know what else they'd be doing. Like, that's when you should found a company. If you're not like that, you can make a lot more money and be a lot more successful and have a pretty good work-life balance being a joiner of the right companies at the right time in the right role. There are hundreds of people that made way more money that they'll ever need in their lives from joining Facebook in the early days, much more than all the founders who've gone through different founder accelerators and other programs, just as one example. And I'll bet you the same will be true for Uber and Snapchat and many others.
Keith Raboy, I mean, there's a whole host of them that has made very successful career, also as a VC as well. And, one thing, I was curious, you've been an investor for, 4 or 5 years now. What's something that you've changed your mind about as an investor, or something that you no longer do that you used to do, or, what?
Yeah, I'm still learning a ton as an investor. I don't know all of the things. One of the things I did early in my career, and I'm in love with all these investments, was bet pretty early on people and ideas that I thought could become really big. One, operator with Robin Chan, who I thought can really go. Robin and Garrett Camp, who's the founder of Uber, can really go disrupt sort of commerce messaging. The ability that you can just ask a question and get a product that you want. Like, you don't even know exactly what you want. We'll help you figure that out and actually get it delivered to you kind of over a conversation. Is a really credible thing. I found as a VC, you take some of those bets where you think it'll work and you're kind of speculating on this incredible team. It's really hard to get anything out of the gate. Or you go and you invest more in things that have a little bit of traction and momentum, and you're trying to figure out, like, with this little bit of usage, can we make this something that can be really, really big? And I think I'm constantly going back and forth on the pendulum on when to bet on different sides of that equation. And so I think every year I learn a different lesson. Sometimes I learn the lesson of bet on traction. My last investment, Discord, is one that was doing incredibly well and growing really fast when we invested. Or I'll find more that I want to invest really early at kind of concept stage. And I think that's something I'm still learning.
Or just in general?
Look, if you are technical, so I think in companies there are two roles that are really fundamental to how companies succeed. The first is actually building the product, which requires real skills of either design or coding. If you're a great designer, that's just as technical and just as important as being a great engineer. But those are two skills. Or figuring out how to get the product in people's hands, and that's understanding growth and marketing. That's understanding sales. If you want to be at enterprise companies, it's understanding business development and relationship building. So I think if you are a early person and you have technical skills and you want to become a product manager, I always encourage people to start technically, because learn the product development cycle, learn it from building it, learn what it costs when you build something and then 6 months later somebody wants to change the feature and you have to redo a lot of what you built, but you could have built it more flexibly then, or what else you wish you knew when you were first building it. Super important. If you aren't technical and you want to break in, figure out how to get the product in people's hands. I mean, I look at you, Eric, and you figure out how to be an incredible community builder, network, build relationships, build ProductCon's brand by putting it in lots of people's hands. There's a lot of people like you who've just been amazing at sort of building community, or people who understand data and SEO and learn skills that like understand marketing, learn how to buy Facebook ads and convert Facebook ads really well, learn psychology so you can develop really intriguing guerrilla marketing campaigns and apply all that to your companies. So if you understand one of these two skills, building and designing the products, or building and getting the product in people's hands and using hustle and marketing, that's a great way to break in with those skills, and then you'll go over time. I see a lot of people who come in and say, I want to do strategy. Never works. Like you can't do strategy if you don't have the substance underneath it and you understand what the actual work is going to take.
Great question from Mazio here. If you were an LP, what signals would you look for in placing an investment into VC firms?
It's a great question. It's a little bit insider baseball for VCs, but I would try to really understand three things about the investors. One is, are they in the right deal flow of the young founders and have a compelling brand that will cause founders to want to reach out to them? Because I think fundamentally, a big part of initial success of VC is being able to have people at least interested in meeting you and having a conversation. And so part of that's hustle, part of that's a brand, part of that's a differentiator. Everybody tries to differentiate on the things they're good at or bad at, and that's actually important for your whole career, let alone just a VC. Look, the second one is, do I think the people have good judgment? Have they been involved with things that get to scale? So as an LP, you think these VCs will likely have good judgment, be able to pick things that will get to interesting scale over other things. And then the last thing is, are they people that ultimately over time people will want to work with? Because I think, VC LP relationship is long-term, even longer term than the VC founder relationship. And so, you want a VC who people are going to want to work with, not just today, but 5 years from now. And if you get somebody who is maybe has good taste and is in the flow, but will quickly get eliminated out of that for not being a good person, you don't want to be investing in. So.
Snapchat, 5 years from now, or maybe 8 years from now, when we're back doing another podcast, what are the next generation of companies that we're going to be talking about that reach that Facebook scale or LinkedIn scale?
Yeah, that's a great question. Right now it's sort of a free for all. This is sort of the first time, in a long time that I haven't felt like there's something new that's on the horizon that's blowing up, even in the same way that Snapchat was. I mean, Facebook's just so good at connecting us, and Instagram's so good at letting us share photos. I think there's going to be something in VR, AR that will become a defining way that a lot of us use the platform. Maybe it will come out of the Oculus team or the Sony team or the Valve team, or maybe it'll be something new that somebody will build that'll surprise us all. I think gaming and esports is becoming a lot bigger. So I'm bullish on my investment in a company called Discord, and I think Twitch will be a lot bigger as well. I think we're going to see those ecosystems evolve to, where they're going to be almost as big as actually professional sports in, call it 10 years. I think there's going to be some stuff around health and biology that will be like something we're all going to talk about that will be affecting the world more than we think so. In the same way, if you'd asked 5 years ago and you're like, oh, this Uber thing is going to remake cities, I might never have said that, but now it's super obvious that Uber's remade cities. So I think we'll see some things there. And look, I still am excited about, two companies I'm involved with, Nextdoor and Medium, I think are on the cusp of becoming one of those companies. Medium, where we read great content every single day, and where if you ever have a story you want to tell, you post it on Medium, and Nextdoor, which is remaking our neighborhoods and local cities in a really compelling way.
That we may not know or appreciate, that the public may not know or appreciate about this person, and or somewhere where you have maybe a disagreement or difference of thought, difference of opinion.
Cool.
Biz Stone.
Biz is the single best translator of the power of technology to something that feels fundamentally human that I've ever worked with. The way he was able to talk about Twitter and its importance for kind of humanity and just relate it to most normal people was unprecedented, and I think was something that even Facebook was not doing as well in that era.
Evan from Snapchat.
Evan from Snapchat. Look, I think he cares so deeply about the people using his products, the people he works with. And I think, there's a reason that Snapchat doesn't have likes and hearts. It's because it created a negative pressure for your picture to have enough likes and hearts that it didn't count. And I think, Evan just understands and cares about people not having that kind of negative pressure on them all the time. He really wants it to be much more authentic. And I think people don't understand how powerful and visceral that is in making Snapchat what it's become. I'm kind of like giving all these guys too many superlatives. Ev understands like how to think about products that get people to share their stories in a way like nobody else. And he thinks about all the things about when you share it, what kind of feedback you get, how to make the feedback really powerful. The stories of the stuff, some of the stuff we're doing in Medium comes all the way back to when he was thinking about this with Blogger, back in the early days. And I think this sort of power of getting words out into the world is something that is really gifted at.
Long, because I don't want to make you take a stance, but I want you to make a prediction, like Slack, Stripe. I know you're big long on Who's. Is it Who's or How's? How's. What's the next big? That's not an investment of yours. So you can't plug an investment. Like, what's the next big company, next big founder that you're, is going to be in that elite class?
I mean, there is something happening with Slack right now that it certainly has the potential to become a much bigger and much more important company. The way we communicate at work, hasn't changed that much since email was introduced 20 years ago. And Slack, IRC and Chat and HipChat have been around, and Campfire have been around for a little while, but none of them really transform the workplace. Slack has that opportunity to, opening up the right channels inside a company to be able to communicate. And whether that becomes a pattern that we actually want to bring back into our lives, there isn't really. WhatsApp is probably the way I've seen people use WhatsApp outside the US is the closest to using Slack channels. I think there's something really big there. I love John and Sammy from Shots. They're great founders, and they've been hustling to build this authentic network that started with selfies, and now it's how do we make each other laugh and how do we have fun. And I think they're I'm really hopeful that they're going to find something that becomes really big and important for the world, and kind of this entertainment and authenticity.
You think when you think of like advice to yourself in 2011 as an investor, if you can go back to when you're starting out, what is the Josh Allen 2016 telling him?
You should have bet on Snapchat. I think it's stay in your lane. My lane has been products that help people connect around media and connect around each other in the world. So stay in that lane and continue to find great companies and founders trying to move that forward. But I think it's get curious and go learn about a few more spaces. I've started investing in the Internet of Things and learning about that. Bitcoin wasn't something that personally interested me. I'm starting to learn a little bit more about what's happening around like the CRISPR ecosystem and health. I think it's continue to be curious, because one part of becoming a great investor is going to be finding stuff in your core domain that really turns out to hit it big. And one part is going to be finding new areas that are going to be as big as when you bet on social networking 10 years ago. No, we got a few more minutes because I started so late.
Perfect.
So I don't want to cut this off at all. It's awesome. Like at least 10 more.
Perfect. Who? So obviously you've been a huge fan of Reid and David too. Said has been a sort of hero for a long time. Talk about when you first realized that you wanted to, that you admire Dave and you wanted to have a career.
It's funny. David Z is sort of he's not bombastic in the press, so I think he's a little bit less known than some of the other great VCs of the past 10 years. But in my opinion, he's one of the very, very best. I mean, he invested in LinkedIn Series B, Facebook Series B, Pandora Series C, I think, and has returned, those investments collectively are worth billions of dollars now, from when he made them. And that's kind of a super uber grand slam for a VC. And when I first met him, he was, at LinkedIn, and he was been at Excite, which back then was a major search company. And he'd been one of the executives at Excite and had sort of been dabbling in some ad tech and enterprise investing, and then kind of found LinkedIn and got to know Reid. And he was meeting some of the early people at LinkedIn, and we just got coffee. And he kind of was explaining to me why he was excited about LinkedIn and what he believed could happen with the company, and why he was excited about social networking, why he thought there might be a consumer internet renaissance. And I thought, wow, this is a guy who's had a really successful career and is now a VC. And I wonder if someday I could grow up to be like that. And as I've gotten to know him over the years, I just haven't seen somebody who stays as thoughtful, as down to earth, as humble in terms of helping companies and always really being behind the companies he's in to make them great. And, watching Reid join David at Greylock was a sign to me that like their partnership was much, much deeper than just one about investing in the company, but really helping them build it together. And thought, gosh, I don't want to just be an investor. I really want to help founders build their companies.
Greylock is, one of the best investors in the world that you look up to, have learned from, read everything they write or
yeah. One of the ones that I've been most impressed with is Bill Gurley over at Benchmark. I think it's funny because he didn't come from a tech or product background. He was actually an analyst before, but I think his way of understanding the intricacies of how these like marketplaces and businesses emerge is really unprecedented. And it's not until you see Bill work privately that you even start to get a real sense of how deeply he understands the fundamental levers and models in these companies and in these products that make them work. I get to see Bill's on the board of Nextdoor, and I get to join some of the Nextdoor board meetings, and just watching the way that he pushes for certain motivating influences to cause the network in the neighborhood to grow. Just blow me away that he's able to think at that detailed level. And when you go read some of his writing about marketplaces, he's able to articulate these very complex concepts, incredibly well. And gosh, he saw Uber before anybody else and really bet that it could become this transportation network of the future. So huge credit for that decision. But I think we sometimes overcredit VCs for an investment decision versus their actual detailed day-to-day work and hands-on understanding of what it's about. And that's where he really blows me away.
In terms of how is like Benchmark pulled away as in terms of what they do, how are they, we could talk about how great Greylock is all day, and obviously it's in the top, but how is Benchmark so good at what they do and why, and how have they?
It's so funny because we talk about companies as like so great about what they do or what's happening, and yet it really comes down to a couple of investments that turn out to be great. It's funny, in 2011 or 12, this question was always about Greylock because we had Facebook, LinkedIn, Pandora, Workday, how else the network's going. today people talk about benchmark because they have Uber and Snapchat, is like, and WeWork is like massive investments that will be great returns for the firm. And it's just always a cycle and a work in process. Fundamentally, the firms that really impress me are ones like Sequoia and Greylock and Benchmark that have been around for a long time, that have gone through generational change, that have really built a practice of entrepreneurs who say that firm really helped me build my company into something big. And we can't just look at the current investments and say, okay, all the hype goes to that, because it's a cycle and it's a process. And sometimes you have hits and sometimes you don't. But the ones who have continually just done this year over year over year are the ones that really get me the most excited.
You think about where you can.
Fundamentally, the founder, there's nothing harder than being the founder and CEO, of a company and trying to grow it from nothing into something. Although, I think the job gets harder and harder every year. Ben Horowitz wrote a great book about, the hard thing about hard things, that I think just shows you how hard the CEO and, founding role continues to be. And so all we can do is try to be the best sounding board possible. We can give strategic advice. Every VC can make connections and help open doors, and we all try to help with recruiting. I think we have an incredible recruiting team at Greylock that helps us close candidates, better than almost anyone else. But you can all help on those things. But fundamentally, the differentiator is who's the sounding board? Who do you want to call at 11 at night when shit's going down and work through something that's hard on the negative side, or who do you want to call and share joyful news when something's going great? As we're sitting here, I got an email from one of the CEOs I work with that was like an amazing update on things that have happened in the past week or two. And I'm excited to go read it. And I'm excited that, we're on the list of people that he wants to share that with. It's a hard job. It's an amazing job to get to work with incredible people. It's hard because I go through the emotional roller coaster with them when they're up or when they're down. I go through multiple of them at the same time, and I can't do as much about it. I can only be there, but I can't actually get in and really help make things right when they're wrong, or help, when there's some joy on some companies, there's some sadness on some others.
Right.
So
what do you, going back to product management for a second, what do you think you've grown to understand about, being a PM that isn't super commonly understood, or that most people don't think about, or that people have a big misconception?
I think a lot of people think of the product manager as this guru leader who sets the vision for the product and drives everyone to go build it. And I just found in my career, the best product managers are the ones who can set a tone and set a cadence, and then really let the great ideas come from the team, from outside the team, collect them and articulate them and hone them into a thing that we go deliver. And I think I see a lot of people like, I want to be a product manager because I want to make the decisions and I want to be in charge and I want to be the CEO of the product, is a term that I hear thrown around way too much. And I think all that's crap. I think the real trick is, can you be the type of person who loves the success of the team and loves sort of, I would say it's like being the guy in the back of the raft, that you're just sort of steering a little bit in the river while everybody else is, while the people around you are paddling as hard as they can. And if you do that work, then you've made your team a lot more successful.
If you were the CEO of Twitter, what would you?
I think I'm excited to see what Jack does back in the company. I think that they have a massive opportunity to help people discover stuff they care about that right now it's still too hard. If I want to set up my Twitter, I call it tuning your Twitter. It's really hard to find the individuals that I want to follow that makes my Twitter perfect. I think if they can figure out how to get you to express Twitter as a set of topics or interests or things that you care about in the world, that Twitter can deliver you these incredible streams of content around, I think Twitter will be, a place that even more people will get the same kind of experience I do every day out of Twitter. So I'd love to see them figure that out. And I think that I'm excited to see all the stuff they can do around live, both with Periscope, with live events happening in the world. Twitter's still where you want to go in the moment when anything's happening. There's a lot they can do to catalyze that even more.
A couple of people have questions about non-tech founders to get, to recruit technical founders, or to sort of, how to present themselves, or what advice you give to non-technical aspiring founders who are not yet.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the best founding teams have a combination of hustle and think and idea and vision for what we want to do in the world and ability to sketch it out, always combined with somebody who's super excited to be their partner in shaping that vision and actually building it and delivering it. And so I see non-technical founders like, how can I hire an engineer? And I think that never works. I think it's, how can I find a partner who's excited with me about this vision? And my skills are going to have to be designing and hustling and finding people out there. And this guy's skills are going to be actually coding it. And together we're going to shape it together. And they're going to be a true partner. When those happen, it ends up being really successful. Look at Kevin and Mikey from Instagram. Look at Evan and Bobby at Snapchat. Like, these are all great partnerships that are true partnerships, not just, hey, where can I go hire a cheap engineer to do my work?
If you had to start a fund, in what sort of space would you start it in? If it had a specific space or stage, or where do you think the opportunity is? If you were talking to someone else who wanted to.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think a lot about institutions. As I said, I'm a joiner. Part of the reason I joined Greylock is Greylock's 50 years old, was around before I was born, and God help me, I hope we put, I'm part of putting Greylock in a place where it's around, well after me, because I believe in institutions that live and survive a long time. If I had to start a new fund, I would think about how I can start a fund like that, and I would focus on Series A. I think the Series A and B stage, is just an exceptional time to get involved in the company, where the seed stage is figuring out if something will work. At A and B, you're saying, hey, we have this thing that we believe will work, that believe we should be really important in the world. Let's set up a company that's built to last. And there's nothing more fun than kind of the early stages of laying the groundwork for built to last. And I would stay in software. I think consumer and I think consumer and enterprise software and a little bit of hardware is sort of a great spot to be in.
Yeah, and in terms of, like, you're going to be an investor for a long time. Or are you? What do you want to look back at your? And this will end with this. What do you want to look back at your career in terms of like legacy, or in terms of what you've accomplished? And
it's a great question, and I believe I really want to help people make things that matter in the world and deliver a ton of value to users, and want to keep doing that. Right now, in my role as an investor, I get to do that by investing, joining the boards of companies that can do that, and being part of them for the long term. That's incredible, and I have my shot to do that. If it turns out I'm not a very good investor, or I'm not great at actually helping companies, achieve that, or finding the right ones to do it to generate the right returns for LPs, then maybe the best way for me to do it will be to go back and get a job at a company where I can still do that and reach that scale. But I want to keep doing the same thing, help companies build products that matter, that get to scale, and I'm going to do that in whatever form I can. And right now I have the shot to do that as an investor and build a great career doing it in this role, and I'm sure hopeful that I can make it.
Josh Elman wanted, and every company wanted Josh Elman, as I'm sure they would. They were all competing over you. Who would you join? Snapchat, Facebook?
I always like the things that still can grow a lot bigger. So, I'm excited about a lot of companies right now. I'm super happy with my friend Tom Conrad, who just joined Snapchat as the head of product there. I think it's an exceptional fit for him and for them. I'm super bullish on companies like Nextdoor Medium. Any of my investments, I could see joining, if it came to that, because I wouldn't have invested if I didn't want to go work there.
Perfect. That's perfect. And a note to end on. But lastly, I just want to give you an opportunity to send any plugs. Where can people learn more about you, or find you online, or more about Greylock, or anything you guys have?
Look, if you ever want to get in touch with me, I'm Josh at Greylock.com. I'm mediocre at responding to email, but I try to read everything. Tweet me at Josh Elman. Read my stuff. I blog on Medium. And if you have stuff to say that you want to share with the world, I ask everyone to blog that back on Medium.
Josh, it has been an honor and a pleasure. You are a friend, supporter, and investor of Product Hunt, and again, one of the best guys in the biz. Thank you for taking the time to chat with us today.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks for having me, Eric.
Sounds good. Josh, talk to you later. Cool. Guys, it was a fantastic episode. Please tweet at Josh Elman. Let him know that you are appreciative. Josh, very busy guy, for him to take his time. Again, one of the best guys in the biz in terms of advice and being helpful, but also in terms of making the time and just caring. And hopefully there'll be a lot more VCs like Josh Elman. Cool. Thank you guys for all joining. If you have feedback, again, at Josh Elman on Twitter, shout out at Product Hunt or at Eric Twarnberg if you have any questions or any recommendations for guests you want to see on Product Hunt. I try to look at all of your questions here on the left-hand side and then incorporate them into my own words. Again, thank you. We have a lot more coming up. If you just look at producthunt.com/live, you will see the entire roster. And this is a lot of fun doing this with you guys. So thank you for your participation, your questions. Huge shout out to the Blab team for making this possible. Big fan of the platform. And think you guys should all be hosting your own shows on it and just using it for a variety of different use cases. I'm long on Blab. Thank you, Brittany, Sean, Hannah, Spencer, and the rest of the Blab team. And thank you for the Product Hunt team that makes this possible as well. Emily, who leads the live chats with me, and then a bunch of the engineers who built this in the first place. Okay, have a great Thursday, everybody, and I will see you soon.